The low hum of alien conversations filled the dimly lit bar on Nexus Prime, a massive trading station floating at the crossroads of several galactic trade routes. Jay Park sat alone, nursing a synthetic whiskey that burned differently than the drinks favored by most alien species. His weathered jacket, patched in several places, marked him as a veteran trader who had seen more than his fair share of interstellar conflicts. Across the room, Wu Chen, a security officer from the Galactic Peacekeeping Force, watched the human with carefully disguised curiosity. Humans were still something of a mystery to most alien races, unpredictable, aggressive, yet strangely complex. Jay seemed relaxed, but there was an alertness in his posture that suggested years of experience surviving in the rough edges of space. The bar itself was a marvel of interstellar engineering. Transparent walls showed the endless starscape outside, with distant nebulae casting soft blues and purples across the room. Various species mingled, tentacled creatures from methane worlds, crystalline beings that communicated through light pulses, and several bipedal races that looked almost humanoid. A group of Valerian merchants entered, their iridescent scales shifting colors with each movement. They spoke in hushed tones, occasionally casting glances at Jay. Humans were still a relatively new species in the galactic community, and their reputation preceded them. Stories of human adaptability and unexpected violence had become something of a legend among traders and diplomats. Suk Lee, a diplomatic observer from the Galactic Council, sat at a nearby table, carefully monitoring the room. His job was to understand the dynamics between different species, and humans were always the most fascinating subject. He noticed how Jay seemed completely at ease, despite being surrounded by aliens that could easily overpower a human in pure physical strength. The bartender, a multi-armed creature with translucent skin, moved efficiently, serving drinks that ranged from near-frozen liquids to substances that would be toxic to most biological organisms. Jay's whiskey sat untouched for a moment as he scanned the room, a habit developed from years of trading in potentially dangerous regions of space. Two Krenorian traders approached the bar, their massive frames taking up significant space. They spoke in deep rumbling sounds that vibrated the nearby glasses. One of them bumped against Jay's table, not intentionally aggressive, but certainly not apologetic. Jay looked up, his eyes meeting the Krenorian's multiple visual receptors. There was no fear, no immediate aggression, just a calm assessment that suggested he had been in far more dangerous situations. The Krenorian seemed surprised by the human's lack of intimidation. In the corner, Hyun Kim watched the scene unfold. Another human trader, she had learned that observation was often more valuable than immediate action. Her hand rested casually near a communication device, ready to call for assistance if needed, but not expecting trouble. The station itself was a marvel of diplomatic engineering. Designed as a neutral meeting ground, it hosted representatives from over 200 different species. Weapons were technically forbidden, but everyone knew that in space, anything could be a weapon. A chair, a drinking glass, even a person's own body could become an instrument of conflict. Wu Chen shifted slightly, his training making him hyper-aware of potential tensions. Humans were still an enigma, a species that had seemingly appeared from nowhere, with technology that was both primitive and surprisingly advanced. Their ability to adapt, to survive in conditions that would kill most other species, made them both fascinating and frightening. Jay took a slow sip of his drink, the motion casual but deliberate. He knew he was being watched, studied, judged. It was a feeling he had grown accustomed to during years of interstellar trading. Humans were still proving themselves in a galaxy full of established civilizations, each with their own complex histories and hierarchies. The bar's ambient temperature shifted slightly, a standard feature designed to keep multiple species comfortable. For Jay, it meant nothing. Humans had survived far more extreme conditions, and this was just another moment in a long history of adaptation and survival. Something was about to happen. The air felt charged, filled with potential energy. And in this moment, no one, not the diplomatic observers, not the security officers, not the various alien species, truly understood what humans were capable of. The tension began with a simple misunderstanding. A Valerian merchant, his scales shifting from blue to an aggressive red, bumped against Jay's table. Drink splashed across the synthetic wood surface, droplets catching the starlight filtering through the station's massive windows. "Watch yourself," the Valerian growled, his translation device rendering the words in a mechanical, sharp tone. His three-fingered hand swept across the table, sending Jay's glass teetering dangerously close to the edge. Jay didn't move. His eyes, calm and calculating, studied the alien. Years of trading in dangerous space lanes had taught him that reaction was often more important than immediate action. The Valerian expected fear, perhaps a submissive response typical of younger species in the galactic community. He got something entirely different. Suk Lee, watching from a nearby table, noticed the subtle change in Jay's body language. The human's muscles didn't tense. His breathing remained steady. It was the calm of someone who had seen far worse and survived. The Valerian pressed closer. His species was known for intimidation tactics, using size and biological advantages to dominate interactions. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, with a muscular frame covered in iridescent scales, he towered over Jay. "I said," the alien repeated, leaning down, "watch yourself." Hyun Kim, seated 2 tables away, subtly adjusted her position. Experienced traders knew how quickly these situations could escalate. Her hand moved closer to a small communication device, not out of fear, but preparation. Wu Chen, the station's security officer, began to move. His training had taught him to prevent conflicts before they became violent. But something about this interaction felt different. The human wasn't responding as expected. Jay's hand slowly moved. Not to a weapon. Not to create distance. Just a simple, almost casual adjustment. The Valerians saw it as a sign of weakness. In galactic interactions, most species would show submission, lowered eyes, stepped back posture, apologetic gestures. But humans were different. The bar around them continued its normal buzz. Alien species from a dozen different worlds continued their conversations. Traders discussed routes. Diplomats negotiated. No one paid much attention to the developing confrontation. The Valerian's translator continued its mechanical translation. Humans think they can just arrive in our space. Act like they belong. You are new. You will learn respect. Jay's response was unexpected. A slight smile. Not aggressive. Not submissive. Just knowing. Suk Lee leaned forward. Something was happening that went beyond a simple bar confrontation. This was a moment of cultural collision. A test. Humans were still an unknown quantity in galactic politics, unpredictable, adaptable, dangerous in ways most species couldn't comprehend. The Valerian scales continued changing color. Blue to red. Red to a mottled purple indicating rising anger. His hand moved closer to Jay, clearly intending to make physical contact, a dominance display common among many spacefaring species. Hyun Kim's fingers tightened almost imperceptibly around her communication device. She knew Jay. They had traded together. Survived together. This wasn't going to end how the Valerian expected. Wu Chen was now just 3 steps away. Close enough to intervene. Far enough to observe. His multiple eyes tracked every minute movement. The station's ambient lighting seemed to dim slightly. Or perhaps it was just the collective tension of the moment. 100 different species, thousands of individual beings, all watching this small interaction that would soon become a story told across multiple star systems. The Valerian's hand moved. Jay remained perfectly still. And everything was about to change. The moment stretched like a drawn bow, tension crackling through the bar's atmosphere. The Valerian's hand moved to grab Jay's shoulder, expecting a typical submissive response from a smaller species. Jay moved. It wasn't a dramatic motion. No wild swing or exaggerated defense. Just a precise, lightning-quick response that defied the alien's expectations. His left hand intercepted the Valerian's wrist with surgical accuracy, redirecting the alien's momentum while simultaneously pushing back against a critical balance point. The Valerian stumbled. Not because of raw strength, but because of something more unexpected, calculated technique. Suk Lee watched in absolute fascination. Humans had a reputation, but reputation was different from direct observation. This was something else entirely. The human wasn't fighting. He was managing the conflict with mathematical precision. Nearby patrons froze. Multiple alien species turned, their various sensory organs focusing on the developing confrontation. Wu Chen stopped moving, realizing this wasn't going to be a simple intervention. The Valerian recovered quickly, his scaled body coiling like a combat-trained predator. "You dare?" The translation device made the words sound mechanical, but the underlying rage was clear. Jay's response was a simple, controlled movement. He shifted his weight, creating space, showing no aggression but complete readiness. It was a posture that screamed one message: your move, but be careful. Hyun Kim's hand moved closer to her communication device. Not out of fear. Out of professional courtesy. If this escalated, she would need to document everything. The bar's ambient sounds seemed to dim. 100 different species watched, their conversations dying into hushed whispers. Humans were still a mystery in galactic interactions, unpredictable, adaptive, dangerous in ways most couldn't comprehend. The Valerian charged. Not a thoughtless rush, but a calculated attack designed to overwhelm smaller opponents. His massive frame suggested certain victory. Scales shifted to combat colors, deep reds and aggressive purples indicating maximum threat response. Jay didn't retreat. He didn't counterattack. He redirected. Using the Valerian's own momentum, Jay shifted slightly. A movement so slight most observers might have missed it. The alien's charge became his own weakness. Suddenly, 7 feet of muscular alien found himself off balance, momentum carrying him past his intended target. Wu Chen had seen many fights. Hundreds of species. Thousands of confrontations. But this was different. The human wasn't fighting. He was solving a problem. The Valerian crashed into a nearby table. Glasses flew. Alien patrons scattered. But Jay remained exactly where he had been, hands open, posture relaxed. Not a victory pose. Just neutral. Suk Lee's diplomatic training struggled to process what he was witnessing. This wasn't violence. This was something more sophisticated. A calculated response that revealed volumes about human psychology. The fallen Valerian scrambled up, scales now a chaotic mix of colors indicating confusion and humiliation. He expected a fight. He got a lesson. You will pay for this. The translation device rendered the words with mechanical precision. Jay's response was a simple raised eyebrow. No words. No aggression. Just a look that suggested the Valerian might want to reconsider his next move. Around them, the bar returned to a strange normalcy. Drinks were reset. Conversations resumed. But something had changed. Every alien in the room now looked at the human differently. Wu Chen made a mental note. This would require a detailed report. Hyun Kim allowed herself a slight smile. Another day. Another demonstration of why humans were becoming a species to be carefully considered in galactic interactions. The Valerian, nursing his bruised pride, slowly backed away. He had come looking for a confrontation. He found something far more complex. And in that moment, another small piece of human reputation was being written across the vast, star-filled canvas of the galaxy. The Valerian's humiliation transformed into rage faster than anyone could anticipate. With a guttural roar that vibrated translation devices, he signaled 2 massive companions sitting nearby. In the galaxy's complex social dynamics, losing face demanded immediate retribution. Jay noticed the movement before the attack began. His eyes, calm but alert, tracked 3 incoming threats. Most would see overwhelming odds. He saw opportunity. Hyun Kim saw it happening. Her hand moved almost imperceptibly, reaching beneath her jacket, not for a weapon, but for something more strategic. The first Valerian charged, expecting to overwhelm the human with pure mass. Jay didn't retreat. Instead, he used a nearby chair as an unexpected shield and pivot point. The chair's metal frame became an extension of his defensive strategy, blocking the initial attack while creating space to maneuver. Wu Chen, the station's security officer, realized this was beyond a simple bar fight. This was a sophisticated defensive engagement. 3 more aliens joined the confrontation. A Krenorian trader, seeing potential chaos, decided to participate. The bar transformed from a peaceful trading station gathering into a complex combat zone. Jay's movements were precise. Not wild swings, but calculated redirections. He used the environment, table edges, chair legs, even other patrons' positions, as tactical advantages. Each motion suggested years of adaptive training. Hyun suddenly joined the fray. Not with additional violence, but with tactical support. She created distraction points, moving alien attackers into less advantageous positions. Their coordination was almost telepathic. Suk Lee, the diplomatic observer, watched in absolute fascination. Humans weren't just fighting. They were solving a complex spatial puzzle using bodies as variables. The Valerian who started the conflict found himself systematically neutralized. Not through brute force, but through intelligent disruption of his attack patterns. Jay moved him away from optimal striking positions, using minimal energy for maximum effect. Station lights flickered. The ambient temperature dropped slightly, an automatic response to heightened conflict zones. Alien patrons scrambled, creating additional movement complexity. 2 Krenorian attackers discovered human adaptability was more than rumor. Every anticipated attack was subtly redirected. Every aggressive motion was transformed into a defensive opportunity. Han grabbed a drink tray, using it as an impromptu shield. Jay used a fallen stool leg as a precision targeting tool. Their movements suggested they had done this before, not just fought, but survived. Wu Chen observed something remarkable. These humans weren't attempting to cause maximum damage. They were systematically reducing threat levels with surgical precision. Within minutes, 6 larger, supposedly more powerful aliens found themselves strategically immobilized. Not beaten. Not broken. Just managed. The bar went silent. Hundreds of alien eyes processed what they had witnessed. A human trader and merchant had just neutralized multiple attackers without causing permanent damage. Suk Lee began formulating diplomatic reports in his mind. This was more than a bar fight. This was a demonstration of human capability that would require extensive analysis. Jay and Hyun stood calmly, breathing steady. Around them, defeated attackers looked confused. They had approached expecting easy victory. They found a complex, adaptive defense system. Station security arrived moments later. But the conflict was already resolved. No weapons used. Minimal structural damage. Just pure, calculated human problem solving. The Valerian who initiated the conflict looked particularly humiliated. He had sought to demonstrate dominance. Instead, he had become a lesson in misjudging an entire species. Wu Chen approached Jay and Hyun. No accusations. No anger. Just professional respect. Interesting resolution, he said, his translator rendering the words with neutral precision. Jay simply raised an eyebrow. Hyun allowed herself a slight smile. Another day. Another demonstration of why humans were becoming a species that demanded respect in the vast, complex galactic community. The bar slowly returned to normal. But something had changed. Every alien present would tell this story. And with each retelling, human reputation would grow more legendary. Station security processed the incident with mechanical efficiency. Cameras recorded everything. Statements were collected. But something felt different this time. Suk Lee began drafting his official report, his translation device capturing nuanced details. Humans weren't just another species. They were something else entirely. A complex system of adaptive intelligence that defied standard galactic classification. Jay and Hyun sat calmly in the processing area. No nervousness. No aggression. Just a professional demeanor that suggested this was routine. Around them, alien security officers exchanged confused glances. The Valerian attackers looked defeated. Not physically, they were largely uninjured. But something more fundamental had been challenged. Their understanding of power dynamics had been completely dismantled. Wu Chen reviewed the video footage. Each replay revealed new layers of complexity. The humans hadn't fought. They had solved a problem. Their movements were mathematical. Precise. Almost like a living algorithm adapting in real time. Station medical teams examined the participants. The human traders showed minimal stress responses. No elevated heart rates. No significant adrenaline markers. They had just handled a complex situation. Diplomatic channels began lighting up. Reports would be sent across multiple star systems. The incident would become more than a simple bar fight. It would be a case study in human capability. They didn't escalate, Suk Lee mumbled, reviewing his notes. They managed the conflict with surgical precision. The Valerian lead attacker was particularly confused. His species valued direct confrontation. Strength through overwhelming force. The humans had demonstrated something else entirely, strength through intelligent adaptation. Hyun noticed the alien observers. Their multiple sensory organs tracked her and Jay with a mixture of fear and fascination. Humans were still a mystery. And mysteries were dangerous. Station records would show 0 serious injuries. Minimal property damage. A complete neutralization of a potentially violent situation through pure tactical intelligence. Jay caught Hyun's eye. A slight nod. They had done this before. Survived. Adapted. Resolved. Alien communication networks would buzz with the story. Another human encounter that defied expectations. Another demonstration of why humans were becoming a species to be carefully considered. Wu Chen's report would be clinical. Precise. But between the lines, something else would be clear. Respect. Not fear. Respect. The Valerian diplomatic team would have difficult conversations. How do you explain being systematically outmaneuvered by a species most considered technologically and physically inferior? Station administrators reviewed the incident. No charges would be filed. The humans had acted within acceptable conflict resolution parameters. Another small victory in galactic diplomatic relations. Suk Lee's final report would become a landmark document. Not just about a bar fight, but about understanding a species that was rapidly changing galactic dynamics. Humans, he wrote in his concluding paragraph, are not just another species. They are a complex adaptive system that transforms confrontation into problem solving. The bar where the incident occurred would become something of a legend. Traders would tell the story. Diplomats would analyze it. And humans would simply continue doing what they always did, survive and adapt. As station life returned to normal, something had fundamentally shifted. The galaxy had been reminded once again that humans were not to be underestimated. Jay looked at Hyun. She looked back. No words needed. They had survived another day. Another encounter. Another demonstration of human capability. The stars outside the station continued their eternal dance. Unaware that another small story had been written in the vast, complex narrative of galactic interactions. Another day. Another lesson learned about the species called humans.